How can you use spaced repetition to make training of employees more effective? I'll explain that in this video. Hello, I'm Stephen Goldberg of Optimist Performance, bringing you practical tips and ideas on leadership, team development, and employee performance in the workplace. I recently started to learn the guitar. I'm not very good yet, but I'm progressing very slowly. But I'm using the spaced repetition method to learn how to play guitar. And that's a common training method for things like guitar, but actually it could be applied to every type of training. Now, the advantage of spaced repetition, well, let me back up and explain what spaced repetition is, but you already know what it is because advertising uses spaced repetition. Think about it. Every time you see an ad on television or hear it on the radio or on social media, you're probably getting bombarded with the same message or advertising. Maybe the ad content itself is a little bit different, but the brand or the messaging to get you to want to buy a product or recognize the brand is the same. And so advertisers have used this for a long time, and it's very effective. And what they're actually doing is they're conditioning us to remember that product or brand. So, think about a grocery store item. When you go to the grocery store, if they've invested a lot in this type of repetitive advertising, you're bound to see that product on the shelf and associate that brand or label with something of quality or something that stands out versus a no-name brand or something you never heard of. So you're more apt to want to pick up that product because unknowingly to you, you've been convinced in your subconscious that that's the right choice. But that can be applied to learning as well. And the difference is that when you are conditioned by advertising, this is involuntary conditioning. But when you choose to learn something and you know why you're learning it and you engage in repetitive learning, like playing the guitar, and in fact, I'm using a training program. I downloaded an app where there's different lessons and you take the time you need to go through each lesson and you can review it over and over again. And that's what, as you progress and practice and go back to the lesson, it permeates your thinking and embeds itself. And also it allows you to create that habit of being able to move your fingers quickly to go from one chord to the other.
The best way of doing it is just repetition. It's playing it over and over again. Counting it can be really helpful because when I'm teaching you songs and teaching you strumming patterns, I'll be going like 1, 2, and 3.
So part of the process of spaced repetition, what happens is that we are, as adults, full of ideas and concepts and learnings from the past. So we may have an embedded way of looking at something or thinking about it. And through repeating a message or reading it over or practicing it, we slowly kind of dismantle that resistance to learning something new, because you need to displace the old ideas to make way for the new ideas. And as you read over something many times, and that's part of what spaced repetition is that usually in training you have a manual or you have a video, and the idea is to go over that not just once, but you read it over and over again. Maybe you do some exercises like practicing the guitar, or you listen and watch the video repetitively. So not only does it allow you to understand the idea better, but it breaks down that mental resistance to learning new ideas. So that's really the core concept behind spaced repetition. And another thing, I think I mentioned this, but it allows you to learn at your own pace, because different people, everybody actually learns at different pace. And people that have maybe high energy and high thinking style, and I'm going to show a diagram of our assessment that shows the scale for thinking. So when you have high thinking style, you're probably in the 7 to 10 range. When you have lower thinking style, you're in the 1 to 3, and the average is the 4 to 7 on our graph. And so people that have high thinking style can consume more information more quickly and can retain it. People in the middle maybe need a little more repetition, and people with the lower scale need a lot of repetition, a lot of practice. So it doesn't measure intelligence, it just measures type of learning pace and learning style. So that's one thing you keep in mind, is to understand that by providing a way of learning for all your employees that uses spaced repetition, they choose the pace that they want to learn at. And that will allow them, if they're quick learners, to move on to the next module. Slower learners will need more repetition. So they feel more engaged, more in control of the learning process, and are better able to retain it. The other part of spaced repetition is just the flexibility it gives learners, that they can read the material or listen to it on their own time, or when they choose, when it best suits them. So it gives that flexibility as well. So when you're planning training, think about how you can actually incorporate spaced repetition into your training program, so it'll give that option to your employees. And that's why, like in our leadership or team training program that we do, we like to space it out. It's really a 3-day program, but if we can, we spaced it out a half a day over, let's say, 6 to 8 weeks, so that people can put things into practice and then come back and talk about their experience. They could read the manual. We do have some videos that they can access online that they can review. And so this puts them more into a position to consume the material at their own pace. So think about it. How can you incorporate spaced repetition into your training programs and make your training easier for your employees and more effective? I hope this makes sense to you and you'll take action on it. All these ideas are good, but you need to act on them, not just read them or listen to them. Also, a reminder to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications, and leave a comment if you have an idea about this, something you want to contribute. Love to hear from you. Thank you for listening, and we'll talk again soon.